Daniel rubbed his face with both hands, his shoulders sagging. I'm not the man I used to be, Em. Somewhere along the way, I lost that part of myself. Work, stress, life. I let it all take over. And now I don't know how to find my way. Back, Emily's vision blurred with tears. The ache in her chest deepened. So, what are you saying? That we're just done? No, he said quickly, stepping closer, his voice rough with emotion. I love you. I swear I do. But when you ask me to bring back what we had, I don't know if I can. And I don't want to promise something I'll fail at. Our tears slipped down her cheeks. She had begged for honesty, and here it was raw, painful, unvarnished. But instead of clarity, it left her reeling. She felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavier than ever. Emily's hands shook as she gripped the edge of the counter, trying to steady herself. Finally, she found her voice, though it was barely more than a whisper. I wasn't asking for perfection, Daniel. I was asking for you. For us, even if it's messy, even if it's hard. I just need to know you're still willing to try. His eyes softened, his jaw tightening as though he were holding back everything he wanted to say. But instead of words, he gave her silence again. That night, Emily sat alone in the living room, her book unopened in her lap. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the clock. She had never felt so close to someone, and yet so far away. After what felt like hours, she heard footsteps. Daniel entered the room, carrying a folded blanket. Without saying a word, he draped it gently over her shoulders. His hand lingered for just a second before pulling away. Emily looked up at him, her eyes meeting his. His expression was unreadable, but softer than it had been in weeks. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, Maybe I do need to learn how to love you again. Her heart skipped, caught between relief and fear. His words were small, uncertain. But they were something a crack of light in the darkness. Still, as he walked back toward the bedroom, Emily sat there in the quiet, wondering if those words would turn into action or if they were just another fleeting moment that would vanish by morning. Emily sat at the edge of the couch, her hands trembling against her knees. The blanket Daniel had draped over her shoulders the night before still lay folded neatly on the armrest. She hadn't moved it. Somehow it felt symbolic, like a fragile offering. Proof that he still cared, even if he didn't know how to say it. But caring wasn't enough. Not anymore. By late afternoon, she couldn't hold her questions inside. She needed answers, even if they tore her apart. She found Daniel in the kitchen, standing at the counter with a mug of coffee. His posture was stiff, his shoulders hunched, as though the weight of the world rested there. Daniel, she said, her voice soft but steady. He turned, his eyes wary, as if bracing himself. Yeah, Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to tread carefully, but her heart had no patience for carefulness anymore. Last night, when you said you didn't know if you could give me what I'm asking for, what did you mean? Do you even love me anymore? Her words cracked on the last part, and she hated the vulnerability in her tone. Daniel's eyes closed briefly, his jaw tightening before he answered. It's not that I don't love you. I do. God, Emily, I do. But somewhere along the way, I forgot how to show it. I've been so consumed with work, with providing, with trying not to fail at everything outside of us, that I failed at the one thing that mattered most. Thus, Emily felt tears well in her eyes. Hearing him admit it didn't soothe hurt, made the wound deeper, because it wasn't just neglect, it was choice. He had chosen everything else over her. You don't understand, she whispered, her voice breaking. I've been so lonely, Daniel. I've sat here in this house with you right next to me and still felt invisible. Do you know what that does to a person? Feel like they're disappearing a little more every day? Daniel's shoulders sagged, his coffee forgotten on the counter. He looked at her, his eyes shining with guilt. I didn't mean to make you feel that way. But you did, she said, tears spilling freely now. And I kept telling myself it would get better, that you'd see me again, that you'd notice. But the truth is, I can't do this by myself anymore. I can't keep carrying the hope for both of us. Her words hung heavy in the room. Daniel's silence stretched, long and suffocating. Finally, he stepped forward, his voice low, almost raw. Then fight for me, Emily. Fight for us. Don't give up on me yet. I know I've been gone, even while standing right here, but I don't want to lose you. I just don't know how to fix it. Emily shook her head, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. I can't fight for both of us, Daniel. You have to meet me halfway. You have to want this as much as I do. His face softened, pain etched in every line. He reached out as though to touch her, then hesitated, his hand falling back to his side. I do want it, he whispered. I just don't know if I'm capable of being the man you deserve anymore. That confession gutted her. It wasn't anger she felt, it was grief. Grief for the man he used to be. Grief for the love that once burned so brightly. Grief for the uncertainty of whether it could ever return. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The silence between them was no longer just silence, it was the echo of years of neglect, the residue of unsaid words, the scar tissue of two hearts that had stopped reaching for one another. Finally, Daniel turned away, his hands braced on the counter, his back to her. Sometimes I think you'd be better off without me, he muttered. Emily gasped, her hand flying to her chest as though he had physically struck her. Don't you dare say that, she cried, her voice breaking. Don't you dare decide for me what's better for me. I chose you, Daniel. Still choose you. But I can't keep choosing someone who won't choose me back. Her words cracked something in him. She saw the flicker of raw emotion in his eyes when he turned back, the mask slipping. He looked at her like he was drowning, desperate for air but unsure how to reach the surface. For the first time in months, he crossed the space between them. He knelt in front of her, his hands trembling as they reached for hers. She hesitated, then let him hold them, the contact sending a shiver through her chest. Emily, he whispered, his voice breaking. I don't want to lose you. I want us to end here. I don't know how to be the man I used to be. Her tears blurred everything, but she clutched his hands tightly. I don't need the man you used to be. I just need you. Here, present, trying. That's all I've ever needed. His forehead rested against her hands, his shoulders trembling. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt his walls begin to crack. That night when she sat in the living room, Daniel walked in quietly and placed another blanket over her shoulders, just as he had before. But this time, instead of walking away, he sat beside her. His hand brushed hers, tentative, unsure. Like a man relearning how to love, Emily turned her head, her eyes meeting his. I don't know if I'll get it right, he said softly, his voice trembling, but maybe I can learn how to love you again. Her heart swelled with both hope and fear. His words were fragile, uncertain, but they were more than silence. They were the beginning of something, not a solution, not a promise, but a step. And as she sat there beside him, wrapped in the blanket he had given her, Emily realized something. Love was not about never breaking, was about choosing to piece each other back together, even when it hurt. Still, as the clock ticked softly in the background, she wondered, would his desire to learn be enough? Or was it already too late? Emily Harper sat at the small round kitchen table, her hands wrapped tightly around a coffee cup that had gone cold long ago. The steam had faded, but she hadn't taken a sip. The soft morning light slipped through the curtains, painting streaks of gold across the wooden floor. But to her, the room felt dim, heavy, almost suffocating in its silence. Her husband Daniel was in the study down the hall. She could hear the faint murmur of his voice through the closed door. Another conference call. Another endless meeting. It started early, just as he always did, before even looking at her, before even saying good morning. Once that would have stung. Now it was becoming their routine. A routine she hated but didn't know how to break. They lived in a cozy suburban home in Seattle, not far from the lake where they used to spend Sunday afternoons walking hand in hand. When they first bought the house, it had felt like a dream white. Picket fence, flowers by the window, the laughter of neighbors spilling over into their yard. It wasn't just a house. It was supposed to be the place where love would grow deeper, where their future would blossom. But lately, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the walls had grown taller, keeping her trapped in a home that no longer felt alive. She thought about the little things they used to do together. Midnight ice cream runs in their pajamas. Dancing. In the kitchen with the radio turned low, laughing when he twirled her and nearly stepped on her toes. Whispering secrets in the dark until one of them finally drifted off to sleep. Back then, even ordinary days had felt like adventures. Now their life together felt like a checklist of responsibilities. Bills, groceries, deadlines, reminders. Emily's eyes flicked to the empty chair across from her. It used to be filled with Daniel, smiling at her over his morning coffee, telling her about some silly dream he had or making her laugh before the day even started. But lately, that chair had been just that empty. Empty of him, empty of warmth, empty of connection. She traced her finger around the rim of the cup, her reflection faintly visible in the dark liquid inside. She saw tired eyes, a woman who smiled. Less than she used to, a woman who missed being loved in the way she once was. And she whispered to herself, barely loud enough to hear her own voice. I told my husband I need this. But does he even hear me anymore? Her chest tightened at the words. She had told him more than once, in quiet ways and loud ones. Sometimes with gentle hints, touching his hand at dinner, suggesting they take a weekend away. Sometimes with raw honesty tears on her cheeks as she said she felt alone even while sitting right next to him. But each time, Daniel had nodded, said he understood, and then gone back to his emails, his meetings, his never-ending to-do lists. That afternoon, when the sun was beginning to sink and the house was bathed in warm light, Emily decided she couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Her heart couldn't take the silence anymore. She stood in the doorway of Daniel's study, her hands gripping the frame. He was shutting his laptop, the look of exhaustion written across his face. For a moment, she hesitated. Maybe he was too tired. Maybe she should wait. But then she thought about the months slipping by, about the ache in her chest that never seemed to leave, and she knew if she didn't speak now, she might never speak at all. Daniel, she said softly, her voice almost catching on his name. He looked up, surprised, as if he hadn't expected her to be there. Hey, he said, forcing a tired smile. Everything okay? Emily stepped inside, her hands trembling slightly. She swallowed hard, her words pressing against her throat. I don't think it is, she whispered. His smile faded, his brows drawing together. What do you mean? She took a deep breath. Her heart was racing, but she forced herself to keep her gaze steady. I need more than this silence between us. I need us back, Daniel. I miss you. I miss us. For a moment the room was so quiet she could hear the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. Daniel stared at her, his eyes searching hers. But no. Words came. His silence cut sharper than any reply could have. Emily's chest tightened. She had finally said the words that had been weighing on her heart, but the only answer she got was silence. And in that silence, she felt both hope and heartbreak battling inside her. Hope that maybe, just maybe, he would hear her this time, and heartbreak at the thought that he might not, as she turned to leave the room. Daniel's voice finally broke through, soft and uncertain. Emily, she froze in the doorway, waiting. But again, nothing. It's just her name hanging heavy in the air, followed by silence. And in that silence, Emily knew this was only the beginning of a conversation that could change everything. That night, Emily lay awake in their shared bed, staring at the ceiling as shadows moved faintly across it. The room was dark, quiet, except for the soft hum of the heater and Daniel's steady breathing beside her. but his back was turned toward her. His body curled away as though an invisible wall stood between them. She could almost feel the distance the way he had folded himself inward. No way. His silence had stretched through the evening like a thick fog. She had spoken her truth, laid bare her heart, but he hadn't answered. Not really. Just her name, and then nothing. Emily turned on her side, her eyes fixed on the faint outline of his shoulders in the dark. 1,000 thoughts raced in her head. Did he even care? Did her words reach him? Or had they only bounced off the wall he had built around himself? Once, nights like this had been different. She remembered how he used to pull her close before sleep, pressing a kiss to her forehead, and whispering, "Good night, Em, sweet dreams." Even when they were tired, even when life felt overwhelming, that small act had been their anchor. But now, there was no kiss, no whisper, no touch, just silence. Her heart ached with the memory. It wasn't the grand gestures she longed for. It was the simple proof that she mattered to him, that she was still the woman he chose every day. By morning, Daniel was already gone from bed, his side cold. She found him in the kitchen, pouring coffee and scrolling through emails on his phone. He looked up briefly when she walked in, offering her a quick smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied, her voice soft. And just like that, the silence returned. Emily made toast she didn't want, buttering it slowly just to fill the empty space. She wanted to scream, to demand that he talk to her, but the words lodged in her throat. She knew if she pushed too hard, he would shut down completely. And yet, doing nothing was tearing her apart. Later, that day, needing air, Emily slipped on her coat and walked down to the lake near their house. The sky was gray, the water still, reflecting the quiet world around it. She sat on a bench, pulling her knees close, watching as couples strolled by hand in hand. Some laughed, others simply walked in silence. But even in their silence, there was connection. She could see it in the way their hands fit together, in the way their bodies leaned just slightly toward one another. Something inside Emily ached deeply. She wanted that again, not perfection, not endless romance, but closeness. The comfort of knowing she was seen, heard, valued. She closed her eyes, and a memory washed over her. It was from their early years, a winter afternoon by this very lake. They had walked together, snow crunching under their boots, Daniel's arm wrapped around her shoulders to keep her warm. She had told him then that she felt safe with him, that she believed their love could weather anything. He had looked at her, eyes shining, and said, "As long as I have you, Em, I'll never let you feel alone." The sting of that memory brought tears to her eyes. Then why do I feel so alone now? She thought. When she finally returned home, the sky was darkening. The warm glow from their house spilled onto the driveway, a stark contrast to the storm inside. She walked in to find Daniel pacing the kitchen, his phone on the counter, his hands restless at his sides. "Emily," he said, his tone almost urgent. She froze, hanging her coat on the hook by the door. Yes, his eyes met hers, and for the first time in what felt like forever, there was no shield, no wall, just raw uncertainty. "I heard you last night," he said quietly. "I heard every word. I don't know if I can give you what you're asking for anymore." The words sliced through her. She felt her knees weaken, her breath catching in her chest. "What do you mean?" she whispered, her voice trembling.